Hello students, in today's video session let us understand about programming environments, multiprocessor and multi-computer concept. In the last class we have seen some of the performance parameters like processor time, throughput, MIPS rate, flops rate, etc. These performance parameters measure the performance of a architecture or system. Today we will understand about programming environment means what exactly is multiprocessor and multi-computer architectures. First, programming environment. Obviously you know that a user want to implement a logic for a particular or a program for particular application. He want a programming environment to be such that comfortably program and implement his job. Okay, there can be two possibilities. One is sequential environment and another is parallel environment. In sequential environment, you know that the system or computer will execute one instruction at a time. Obviously this is not the best of architecture where one instruction at a time is executed and this is slow. Obviously in this sequential environment, compiler and kernel programs are written such a way as to do this one instruction at a time implementation. In parallel environment, parallelly many data processes and functions are running. So as to implement this, obviously a very intelligent compiler is required and there should be language written so as to do this. The operating system must be such that it will maximally utilize its resources whatever are available. In parallel environment, some important issues like scheduling of parallel functions, what are the concurrent processes that are running, how exactly inter-process communication takes place and synchronization takes place, how memory is allocated, all these become important. Let us see what exactly is parallel environment. Then there can be two possibilities. One is implicit parallelism and the second one is explicit parallelism. What exactly is the meaning of these two? Let us see that. First is implicit parallelism. Implicit parallelism is one where the compiler does the job of parallel processing. The programmer is not bothered about this. He will just write the program in the sequential manner using C, C++, Fortran or whatever language he is comfortable with. He will write the source program and then the compiler does parallelizing job. Hence the pressure or the job of compiler is so as to do this parallelism. It has to detect the parallelism in the program and need to assign the machine resources accordingly. What is the meaning of machine resources? The memory allocation, synchronization of different processes, all this the compiler has to do. The implicit parallelism, it is very user friendly because user is not bothered how exactly parallelism takes place, but the total job is done by an intelligent compiler. This is how different run of the program has taking place in implicit parallelism. Okay, please note that intelligent compiler is very important in case of implicit parallelism. What exactly is explicit parallelism? In explicit parallelism, the programmer while he writes his program should recognize some of the possibilities of having parallelism in his program and accordingly he should write the program using the normal languages like C, C++, Fortran in parallel dialects. We call it as parallel dialects. Dialects means a local way of writing parallel programming. Okay, Because of this explicit parallelism where the user himself will try to implement some parallelism, the burden on the compiler is reduced. Okay, the job of the compiler is to allocate the resources explicitly so that the program can be implemented easily. For this reason, new programming languages are actually developed, and not only that, present programs whatever are there, no, C, C++, etc., different extensions are given to that so that explicit parallelism can be implemented. Some graphical ads or usage programs are also have come into picture so as to implement explicit parallelism. Try to understand the difference between implicit and explicit parallelism. In an abstract, I can say that implicit parallelism, the total parallel processing is done by compiler itself, whereas in explicit parallelism, a part of that is done by the programmer himself. Now let us understand parallel computing concept. Before we understand parallel computing concept, one should see that mainly we are doing parallel computing and parallel processing so as to speed up the job. Here large amount of data and instruction need to be handled. So as to handle large amount of data and instruction, we require parallel processing concepts or parallel computing concept. We should understand the difference between multiprocessor and multi-computers. Multiprocessor means many processors are present in a single computer. Okay, single computer. You know that quad computers, octal computers, like this, octal processors, quad processors, like this concept comes. What is the meaning of this? Many processors are present in a single computer. That is the meaning. Another important concept which we should understand before we log into the details of this is we should know the memory hierarchy. Memory hierarchy means there can be registers which are possible to be present so as to handle or store the data. There can be cache memory which is slightly larger than the registers, and there can be memories like magnetic tapes or disks, etc. One should see that the registers are small in size but they are very very fast, whereas cache memory are slightly larger in size but as a speed they are slightly lesser as compared to registers. Down the line, magnetic storage elements whatever come into picture, they can store large amount of data but they are very very slow. Hence generally we should know that when we deal with large amount of data, those data and instructions can be stored only in larger memories. Hence we need to coordinate memory very very intelligent manner so as to speed up our parallel computing. This what is a slight introduction what I can give you regarding memory. In parallel computing there can be two concepts. One is multiprocessor concept and one next is multi-computer concept. In multiprocessor concepts there can be uniform memory access model, non-uniform memory access model, and cache only memory access model. Okay, this is the structure of parallel computing. Let us extend this in the next coming slide. First is uniform memory access. You see, in uniform memory access, the physical memory whatever is there, that is totally shared by different processors. First thing is there are many processors present in the architecture. If you can see this slide, there is P1, P2, P3, Pn. N processors are present. These N processors share the memory, and they share in such a way that there is uniform time available for them to access the memory word. Whether it is the first processor or the nth processor, they will be having the same time to access a particular memory word. There can be chances of having the local cache memory with each of these processors, but the main memory is common and the access time is same. That is very important. There can be different IO peripherals also present here in the system. You can see there can be IO processors present the processors can have access to these peripherals also. Hence, in multiprocessor uniform memory access system, you will be having access for IO peripherals and shared memory in a common manner. Okay. Hence, we call this as tightly coupled system. We call this as tightly coupled system. This model, whatever we are talking, is just extension of a uniprocessor. This is multiprocessor because many processors are there. It is just adding one processor at a time. That's all. Many processors are there. But here you can see all these shared memory are interconnected by bus, okay, or crossbar or multi-stage network. The synchronization of this is very important. And another concept which I like to tell is there can be symmetric multiprocessor and asymmetric multiprocessor. What is the meaning of this? Symmetric multiprocessor means all the processors are having same capability or importance in running the program or sharing the different resources. Sharing the resources means memory and IO peripherals. All processors are having the same capability. Whereas in asymmetric multiprocessors, few of the processors are having the advantage. They are attached with the peripherals and they become the master in accessing these peripherals. Hence, these are called as asymmetric multiprocessors. Asymmetric means what? Few processors are acting as supervisor masters. They are having special accessibility to the peripherals. Okay, this is the uniform memory access. Please note that in uniform memory access, the shared memory is accessed by all the processors. It is having multiprocessor structure. The next concept, whatever I would like to tell, is non-uniform memory access. Okay, as the name suggests, in non-uniform memory access, the shared memory, there are two levels of memory or multi levels of memories. If you can see this structure, each processor is having, if you can see this structure, whereas figure 1.7a, okay, in figure 1.7a you can see that each processor is having its own local memory, and it can access that in a very speed manner. The first processor can access local memory 1, second processor can access local memory 2. See, when a particular processor want to access the memory of the other, it becomes non-uniformity. That means if processor 1 want to access some data from second processor memory, then it becomes a globally addressable. Okay, globally addressable. Hence, accessing that becomes a time-consuming job. Okay, one should understand that there is faster access to the local memory for a local processor, whereas when it want to access the remote memory, then a global addressing space is required. When global addressing space comes into picture, you need to use interconnection network between different processors, and the accessing becomes slow. This is one structure. Whereas another structure possible is there can be hierarchical structures as shown in figure 1.7b. There can be hierarchical structures between processors. Okay, here you can see that in this hierarchy means first cluster, second cluster, like this n clusters are present. Okay, these clusters are having their own memory structures and processors and inter-processor connectivity network, as shown in the figure. Similarly, when they want to access the common data, then all these clusters should log into the global interconnected network and global memory. That's how the non-uniform memory access structure will work. Non-uniform memory access structures will work. Okay, I hope you understood. Here each of the processors are having their own local memory. If they want to access the memory of other processors, they need to use interconnecting network, and to access that it becomes cache only memory access model is as shown in the diagram here. It is nothing but a special case of non-uniform memory access. Only thing is the memory, whatever we are saying here, it is a cache memory. You can see that it is a cache memory, that's all. Each processor is having cache. Along with that cache memory, a directory is specified. What exactly is the use of these directories? D whatever is there, no, that is called as directory. Suppose you want to access a data from a particular processor, you need to log into the directory, and from there you can access the data. So as to access the data from other processors, interconnection network will help you in this regard. That's what is the cache only memory access. Here the cache only memory access is slightly faster than non-uniform memory access, because as you observed, so as to access the data from other processor, it's a time consuming job, whereas in cache only memory access we are providing cache along with the processor so as to speed up the data accessing. So as to keep larger data, directories are present for each of the processors. That's the difference between non-uniform memory access and cache only memory access. Otherwise both are the very similar, structurally they are very similar. The next concept whatever I am telling is no remote memory access, or we call this as distributed memory multi-computers. What exactly is this distributed memory multi-computers? You can see the structure as shown in figure 1.9. Here you will see that there is one processor along with a memory. Each of these are called as nodes. M and P, whatever is denoted in this figure, they are called as nodes. These are independent computers themselves. These are independent computers themselves. These each computers or nodes may have multiprocessors, that is different. They may have multiprocessors, that is different. You can see that these different computers are interconnected by mesh, ring, or any of the Ethernet or any of the networking connections are done so as to connect these different computers. Okay, we use message passing network programming so as to establish the connection between these static nodes. And importantly, all the local memories pertaining to the processor or computer are local. You cannot access the memory of other computers or other nodes through these networks. But how exactly the communication takes place? Suppose you want to access the data of the other processor, what you will do? You will make a copy of the data and you will use this. Hence, you can see that in the distributed memory multi-computers, memory are distributed and they are local to each processor. So as to access those memory, you need to keep one data and you should copy of the data, and then you can access that. Hence we call this as no remote memory access. No remote memory access means A particular processor cannot access the memory of another processor directly, but it can use a copy of that. Hence, these kind of models can be scalable. Hence, they are very important. Scalable means if you want to add a particular node, you can add it. For a particular application, if you want more nodes to speed up the job, you can add them. Scalability is possible in case of distributed memory multi-computers. These are the 4 type of different computer architecture what we have seen. Next is let us see the structure of vector supercomputers. These are single instruction multi-data or SIMD computers. Okay, these are very useful in massive data parallelism. How exactly is the structure? If you see this figure, there are mainly 2 things. One is scalar processor, which is marked in a red bound, whereas the second one is vector processor, which is bound in the green box. Okay, actually the given architecture mainly is a scalar processor. On top of that, we are including the vector processor, which is optional. Try to understand, vector processor is optional, whereas scalar processor, whatever we are talking, it is very essential. This is how the structure is. Mainly scalar processor and vector processor are part of this supercomputer. Now, how exactly the processing takes place? Let us see that. First step, the instructions and data are loaded into the host computer. Once it is loaded into the host computer main memory, these instructions are decoded by scalar control unit. You can see that the scalar processor is having scalar control unit. Similarly, vector processor is having vector control unit, and their own vector registers and pipeline function, all these are present. Now coming back, when a program is loaded into the main memory and decoded by scalar control unit, it will try to understand what kind of instruction is this. First, it will process the scalar instructions by itself if they belong to the scalar processing, as well as program control it only does. If it is a scalar instruction, it will do the pipelining operation there in the scalar processor. If it is a vector instruction, then what it does is step 3 bar 2. It sends that to vector control unit. Whatever vector instructions are there, no, it will send to vector control unit so as to process. The vector control unit, whatever is there, it will try to see the instructions that are coming to it, vector instruction whatever are coming to it, and then it will does the processing. What processing it does, the vector control unit will see to that what pipelining functions are there. It will try to allocate that. It will try to allocate the resources, that is vector registers, and it will try to control the flow of data between different pipelining functions as well as the data between main memory and vector registers. It will control. That's what is the job of vector control unit. Okay. As I have told you, step 3 bar 2, if the instructions are vector instructions, then it is processed by vector control unit. Now, vector processor, as I told you, this vector processor is an additional processor that is required, which can be added so as to speed up the job. There can be 2 architectures here. One is register to register architecture in the case of vector processors, and there can be memory to memory architecture, where in the case of register to register architecture, registers are used to hold the operands, data, intermediate results and final results. All these are held by vector registers. as well as it will control the pipeline functions and the data flow between pipelining functions as well as the main memory and registers. All this is controlled by vector controller, and this is what is register to register architecture. Generally there are vector instructions present. The programmer writes the vector instructions so as to work with this. These are vector instructions are generally fixed in fixed length. They come generally 64 bits. There can be another variant of vector processor. Another variant of vector processor is memory to memory architecture. In memory to memory architecture, what happens is we will not be having any registers to act here. The total whatever pipelining is to be done, controlling is to be done, is done by a streaming unit. Okay, it replaces the registers. That's all. There are different vector supercomputers. Examples, they can be Cray series, Fujitsu VP2000, VAX 9000. All these are present. For example, VAX 9000 is having multiprocessors and total 63 vector instructions are there, and there are 16 into 64 into 64 vector registers. With this you can achieve maximum of 500 MIPS performance. Okay, hence you can see that I just vector supercomputers, very simple. It is having two processors. One is scalar processor, that is essentially required. On top of that you can add vector processors, okay, so as to speed up the job. I told you when instructions and data are loaded into the main memory, the scalar unit will bifurcate it into scalar instructions and vector instructions, and all these jobs are done by vector processor does whatever related with the vector instructions, and scalar processor does the job with scalar instructions. Okay, and this is what is vector supercomputer. Next is single instruction multiple data supercomputers. Okay, single instruction multiple data super instructions. Here single instruction multiple data supercomputers, whatever I am telling, is having different processing elements. Important here is different processing elements are present here. PE0, PE1, PE2, like this n number of processing elements are present. These processing element, whatever I am talking, is having a processor and its memory. Okay, processing element means what? Processing element is one which does a particular process. For example, it may be a adder, or it may be a multiplier, it may be a logic unit. Like this, different process whatever are there, no, are distributed over different processing element. Each processing element may have its own processor and memory. The whole of these processing elements are interconnected by interconnection network as shown, as well as they all are controlled by a control unit. This is what is a structure of single instruction multiple data supercomputer. Okay, single instruction multiple data supercomputer. Now let us understand the model of this. Obviously the model of SIMD supercomputer are having 5 types. That means we require 5 different things so as to control SIMD supercomputers. Okay, as I told you, each machine instruction may have these 5 things. They are given here as by the equation M is equal to NCIMR. Okay, what exactly is N? See, N is equal to the number of processing elements in the machine. Piece, processing elements. As I told you, processing element means an element which does a particular job. That's all. It may be an adder, it may be a subtractor, it may be a logical unit, like this. N is number of processing elements. The next C is the set of instruction directly executed by the control unit. C is the set of instruction that is executed by the control unit. As I told you in the structure, there is a control unit, processing element unit, and then interconnecting structure or interconnecting network. Now C is the set of instructions that are directly executed by the control unit. Now what is I? I is a set of instruction broadcasted by the control unit to all the processing elements for parallel execution. For example, a particular instruction may need to be executed by all the processing element. I gives that set of instruction. Then what is M? M is a set of masking scheme that provides which processing element need to be enabled and which need to be disabled. Sometimes in some operations what happens is some processing elements need to be kept enabled and some need to be disabled. For example, you want to add different data. When you want to add different data, some processing elements which can do the adding only need to be enabled. Those who can multiply need to be disabled, isn't it? In the same manner, M gives the set of masking scheme. What is R? R is a set of data routing functions that is required for inter processing element communication. See, this includes, R includes the routing data. Routing data means a particular processing element need to communicate to the nth processing element so as to route its data or route a particular instruction. How exactly that is present? No, that set of information is stored in R. Hence, SIMD supercomputer structure, as I have shown you, it is like this. But mainly a set of parameters need to be specified in case of SIMD supercomputers. The set of parameters which we are specifying is like this, which is a set of 5 parameters NCIMR, where N is the number of processing elements, C is the set of instruction that is executed by the control unit, I is instructions which are broadcasted to all processing element, M is the set of masking scheme, R is the set of data routing. Okay, just to give an example here, you can see that MASPAR MP1 computer, if you can see, it is having 1024 processing elements, okay, and its MIPS rate is 26,000. Okay, it's a RISC processor. Hence, you can see different examples. I shall give you different example tables for all these different structures whatever we have discussed today. Okay, next session I shall discuss about PRAM and VLSI models. This parallel computing model today, whatever I discussed, are mainly these things. That means UMA model, NUMA model, comma model and NORMA model, along with few vectored supercomputer and SIMD supercomputers we have discussed in this class. I hope you understood. Just answer for the quizzes which I am just posting you. Thank you.